Class is in session. College football hitting the book show, and this is our final season preview show. We've done the Power Four conferences. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you do. Big 10, SEC, ACC, Big 12. We did preview shows for all of those. This show is dedicated to the Group of Five conferences, the G5, and we will go through each Group of Five conference a little bit more streamlined. We will just get to teams we have a strong, bet on, bet against opinion for. We'll give you some futures in each of these conferences, any win totals that we like as well. And we'll go through all the Group of Five conferences. So let's jump right into it. We will begin with the AAC, the American Athletic Conference. This has been one of the better Group of Five conferences in college football over the years, although the Sun Belt is right there with them, probably as the one of the best Group of Five conferences right now. In fact, I'd probably put the Sun Belt slightly ahead of the AAC right now. But the AAC is still a pretty solid, non-power conference when it comes to college football. You look at the futures to win the conference. You got Tulane, the favorite, plus 390. UTSA, plus 400. Navy, plus 480. This is at FanDuel, by the way. South Florida, plus 500. Memphis, plus 550. Army, plus 1,000. Of course, the conference champions last year. East Carolina, plus 1,500. North Texas, plus 1,700. And then everyone else is 55-1 or lower. Florida Atlantic, Rice, Tulsa, UAB, Charlotte, and Temple in this conference. I'll throw out a couple bet-ons that I have. UTSA and Navy, I think, are both going to be pretty solid in this conference. You look at the UTSA Roadrunners this year. This is a team that I think, under trailer last year, maybe a little bit of a step back, but they bring back Owen McCown at quarterback, which is big. I think the offensive line should be solid. There's some good weapons there. The defense, which was kind of suspect at times last year, I expect better from that group heading into this season. So I think the UTSA arrow pointing up a little bit. Navy had a very good season last year, and I think they're going to be pretty good this year once again. The midshipmen. I think that definitely we obviously saw Army last year, the season they had. Blake Horvath, their quarterback, is going to be returning once again. They've got some multiple options in the running back stable, which is key, obviously, based on the offense Navy's going to run. So, like I say, I think the arrow pointing up as well on this Navy team. And then a couple that I would say that I'm negative on. East Carolina and North Texas in that mid-range. I've got kind of positive thoughts regarding them going into the year. Remember, East Carolina had a bad start, fired the coach. Blake Harrell became the interim coach, and they got red hot down the stretch. They played great football. Caton Hauser took at quarterback was great. They won their bowl game. I think that's momentum that can carry into this year for ECU. I think North Texas might be able also to take a step forward. They like their quarterback, Reese Poffenbarger, here at quarterback this year. And when you factor in that they had Chandler Morris was kind of hit or miss, I think that they really like this talented young quarterback. They're going to be able to put up points, defense a little bit better. So like those two teams in the mid-range, ECU and North Texas. And then last but not least, teams I would fade. UAB stands out. I think Trent Dilfer is going to be out of there. You look at the schedule, it's not easy. It's a team that, defensively has definitely had their issues, had their struggles. And even with the offensive side of the football last year, there were times when, moving the football was not easy for the UAB Blazers. And then you just look at the dysfunction. You look at the fact that they're on a large basis getting out recruited, it seems like, on a regular basis here in this conference, which is not exactly what you want to see. One thing about Jalen Kitna, too, he just had too many interceptions last year, 11 interceptions, and certainly he's going to have to cut down on that. No doubt about that. Two top running backs are gone as well. The defense, they've given up, over 30 points per game each of the years that Dilfer's been here. I just see a program going nowhere and getting worse, not better, under this head coach. So UAB definitely not a team I'm overly excited about. CMAC, some of the teams you like and don't like here in the AAC.
Yeah, I don't like. It's UAB. It's one of the tops for me. With Dillard, I just don't think
it's going to stand out to a lot of people in the negative variety in this conference. Yeah,
I think it's just similar. They're going to just go whatever. They went 3-9 last year. I don't think a bunch of the defense is going to change. More rebuilding. Just I don't know. UAB, man, That what a program with him has just gone downhill within 3 years. So Florida Atlantic, I think could be tough. Kitley there now. How much can he get his offense really get going there? I think it's going to take some time. They got a bunch of guys kind of coming in and out. Those were kind of the two for me that just I really did.
A good over team, FAU. Here's the thing with FAU. I think their defense is going to be rough, but the one thing I'll say is Kitley's a good offensive mind.
Yeah.
Veltkamp's been around the block, who he brings in from Western Kentucky as quarterback. And Veltkamp plays in a very similar system, played in a very similar offensive system at Western Kentucky that Kitley will bring to FAU. So the offense actually could be solid. Defense, though, is a concern. No doubt.
Yeah, and we'll see how great the offense can really get going. You mentioned over team there. Let's touch on one more. Tulsa. It's going to be weird. Their defense is not. They're going to be an over team, I think, kind of in a bunch of shootouts. So just kind of jot that down. Another team at the bottom here. I think it'd be an over team. Let's get to the teams that I like. Navy. I do like it. I like their schedule here a little bit. I had it pulled up. You talked about Horvath back. I think the defense will be good enough. Okay, yeah, VMI to start, and they're home to UAB, then at Tulsa. I mean, this team could be 4-0 to start out at home at Rice. Then, of course, big game against Air Force. Air Force took a step back. We'll see if they can really get going. Then they're at Temple, winnable game, right? At home to FAU. I don't know how this team doesn't win over 8.5 games here. The price isn't crazy. It's like minus 120. I think you might even be able to get a better line. I think that's what it was. Just even at FanDuel or DraftKings here. Yeah, minus 120. I mean, I think they win 9 or 10 games. Of course, they play Notre Dame, which they probably won't get. But, games like at Memphis might not be easy. They're at home at least to South Florida. That's a team, too. Let's just go right to them next. I think they're pretty good, but I think they go 6-6 basically again. That's what they were last year, I believe, right? They start out with Florida, Miami. I think they start out 0-3. Now their schedule I do like, but I don't know how they get to 7 wins. And to start out, some of their win totals at 7.5. It's mostly 6.5. Now, if you take the 7.5, it's really, really juiced. But I think the defense will still be a problem. I think they have some playmakers. But even at 6.5, it's possible they win 7 games just because how weak the schedule is after they could start out 0-3. Who knows? Maybe they could get one of those games. If they do, they probably get over the 6.5. But it's very easy, the rest of the way. And I think they're an under. I really like the under 7.5. Obviously, there isn't a ton, but 6.5, I still think, they end up a 6-win team. A lot of hype for USF. What do you think about them?
Same thing with you. I mean, the defense is still there. And here's another thing, too. Once Byron Brown went down due to injury, the offense was done after that. Bryce Archie was just not good. Okay.
Yeah, that was tough.
Huge decline in quarterback play and production. Once Byron Brown got injured, and Byron Brown's back and he's healthy and he's going to be the starter for the Bulls to start the year. But if something happens to him, Bryce Archie showed last year he was not ready to handle the number 1 spot. And
it was rough.
It was,
watching it. God damn.
Yeah. So that's the biggest issue, I think, with them. I actually think Rice could be a little bit better this year too. They're not going to win the conference better, but I think they're going to be, feisty. I think they're going to be able to cover a few point spreads this year when you look at this team. I think defensively they actually, because you're looking for some teams, there's a lot of weaker defenses in this conference. I don't mind. Now, it is a new head coach and new coordinators. Keep that in mind.
Overall, that's the only thing, but yeah.
But a good coach. They did a nice job at Davidson Wildcats. FCS coach, Scott Abel, coming in as the new head coach. Abel, I should say, for Rice. And like I said, I just think this team could be a little bit sneaky. They could struggle early because, again, you're talking about brand new coaching staff here. But, I do think as the season goes on, they've got the potential to get better. I'm going to go to another team that I'm not exactly in love with. And people are throwing them into the mix with Tulane. I'm neutral on. Tulane, I don't know if there's going to be value. But I respect the hell out of John Sumrall, and that program just year in and year out is good. It was built by Willie Fritz. It doesn't look like it's going to it's taken any step back under John Sumrall. He's a very good coach too, and I'm not sure what Retzlaff will do transferring over from BYU. We'll have to see. And there's still.
I think the defense will be pretty good. It's what can rest of that offense do? Yeah.
But the team I was going to mention in terms of every year I'm anti this team. I just feel they're overrated. They're overvalued. I don't think this coach has done a great job considering what his predecessor, Mike Norvell, did, and that's Memphis. Every year people expect Memphis to win this con. This is the year. This is finally it. I'm not a Ryan Silverfield fan. I don't know how many times I've said this on college football shows with CMAC over the years. I'm just not really enamored with what he's done. I think they've been okay. They've been all right. But they haven't been this dominate the conference type of team that I think Memphis expects, considering they're in a non-power conference. And you look at now they lose Seth Hennigan, who was probably the best part of that team last year, or one of them, the quarterback. He was very good. He's gone. And the guy you're bringing in to be the new starter, and it looks like he's leading the way to be the starter. And
Lewis?
Brendan Lewis? Are you shitting me? This guy is your option? Is your next in line? Guy that at Colorado and Nevada has been fucking mediocre at best, decision-making problems, interceptions. That's the guy. Hard pass for me. And this Memphis defense, who knows if it's going to be – I've been waiting 6 years for Memphis to have a decent defense. And every year it seems like they struggle on that side of the ball. At times last year defense actually was a little bit better, but it seemed like they feasted on weaker offenses. Then when they played better offenses, that's when the defense just wasn't any good for this Memphis Tigers team. And then you look at the fact that, a lot of their production on the D-line's gone from last year, only 4 starters back. Last year was the year, where Silverfield finally, it was a pretty solid year overall for him. 10-2 was the straight up record. It was a good year for Memphis. It wasn't good enough to win the AAC because obviously of the great year Army had, but it was a good year for Memphis. But this is where I think they take the step back. And other than last year where they played better, remember they had Seth Hennigan who'd been there forever. Now this is the year they take the step back because now Silverfield's got to do the work to plug the holes from all that he lost last year, and I don't think he's done a very good job of it. So Memphis under for me with the Tigers.
All right.
There you go. All right, there's the just quickly as far as win totals, I'll just rip through what I bet here. Army under. I hate to do it, but Army just lost too much. I know they had a phenomenal year, but Ekpe Udo or Kanye Udo, I should say, and Bryson Daly. I mean, just those two guys alone, what they meant to that Army team that was the best Army team probably in my lifetime. It's going to be hard, I think, to duplicate that. So I went a little under 7.5. I mentioned ECU over. Memphis under, Navy over. I agree with CMAC there. North Texas over, I think, could be sneaky. Here's the thing with North Texas this year. Again, and I mentioned it with Poffenbarger, but the defense could take a step, so I'm on that over there. UAB under 4.5. And UTSA, that's one thing I wanted to mention about UTSA is that I do think, like I say, they take a step. I think Owen McCown probably has his best season at quarterback. And then for futures, I took UTSA in the Navy plus 400, plus 480 to win the conference. And then a couple longer shots, North Texas and ECU in that 15-17 to 1 range. I kept those bets smaller, but just felt the price. There's some value on both ECU and North Texas in that. I think you're wasting money putting it on any of the lower rung teams like Florida Atlantic, Tulsa, Rice. UAB, Charlotte, Temple. I don't see any of those teams. I'll throw out one thing on Charlotte. Maybe not early in the season because it's a big job ahead of them, but they really did hire a good head coach, CMAC, in Albin, Tim Albin from Ohio. Tim Albin did a great job at Ohio. Good winning years, knows how to build a program. It's going to take time with Charlotte because he's starting from the bottom, but I think Charlotte ATS later in the year could be a team worth backing as underdogs. And I think eventually you're going to see Charlotte turn a corner because I think they made a good hire in Tim Albin, the former Ohio Bobcats head coach. So just keep an eye on Charlotte as the season goes on. Anything else you want to say about the AAC, CMAC?
No, let's roll. All
right, on we go to the Conference USA. And Conference USA is probably the worst conference in college football these days. It's the worst. It's definitely, in my opinion right now, it is the weakest Group of 5 conference. Liberty, it's probably going to be their conference to lose again, although lose it they did last year. If you remember, they were a pretty decent favorite last year to win Conference USA, and of course, they were not able to. But after them, you got Western Kentucky plus 450. Liberty's favorite at plus 115 to win Conference USA. Western Kentucky plus 450. Louisiana Tech plus 950. Sam Houston State 10-1. Jacksonville State 11-1. UTEP 13-1. FIU 15-1. Middle Tennessee 17-1. New Mexico State 22-1, and Kennesaw State 30-1 is what we're looking at with them. Bet on in Conference USA. Western Kentucky, I think. Here's the thing about Western Kentucky this year that's very interesting, is we've got basically really fascinating situation on our hands here, where we've got ourselves a quarterback and a coach coming from the same program into Western Kentucky as OC and quarterback, Maverick McIver. It's a guy that played at Valdosta State. And his OC there is also on his way to Western Kentucky. So you're talking about a quarterback that knows a system. His OC's coming there with him. This is a Western Kentucky offense that should be really good, as in really special, play fast. As far as pace numbers, I went and looked for Western Kentucky under this head coach that comes over to the Hilltoppers from Valdosta State, and they were always top 5 in number of plays per game and pace. So you're going to see them play hyper fast. It's a situation, I think, where, again, because you've got Maverick McIver coming here with Rick Bowie, the offensive coordinator from that Valdosta State program, I think they're going to hit the ground running on offense. And we know under the current head coach, Tyson Helton, 7th year now at Western, that they always have good offense, or most years they have good offenses. They've actually taken a step back in some recent years offensively, but for the most part, Western Kentucky's been known as a program to be a very good offensive group. I would expect them to be really strong on that side of the football. The defense, it's always the question, when it comes to Western Kentucky, and there still could be, a few issues when you look at the defensive side of the football coming into this season. There's no doubt they're going to be able to score points, and I do think they are going to be able to outscore any defensive issues they might have. So overs in Western Kentucky games, and I think the offense alone, could be good enough to have them in contention here in Conference USA, which isn't a weak, strong conference to begin with, top to bottom. And especially when you factor in CMAC, Liberty, they spit the bit last year with a chance to win this conference. Caden Salter's no longer there. They go to Ethan Vasco, the transfer at Carolina, and he's kind of hit or miss. And then you look at the rest of the teams after them. Evan Bullock and Louisiana Tech, the quarterback there was inconsistent. Sonny Cumbie has not had the success at Louisiana Tech that a lot of people thought. The defense actually was better last year for La Tech, but now they lose a lot of that production on defense this year. How good are they going to be, especially if the offense still sputters? So Louisiana Tech's got questions. Sam Houston and Jacksonville State, two of the best teams in the conference last year. They both lost coaches. They both lost a slew of their starters on both sides of the football. New systems galore on both sides. You got Phil Longo all of a sudden coming into the mix there for Sam Houston State. And you're going to go from a team that's playing ultra slow, run-heavy offense under Keeler, and now all of a sudden now under Phil Longo, the new head coach, and Zach Patterson, the new OC, you're going to go fast. You're going to probably throw the ball a bit more. So how's that fit going to work, for Hunter Watson at quarterback for the Bearcats? That's the big question mark. And then congruently there, Jacksonville State, you're going from Rich Rod and run-heavy, up-tempo spread. And now this year, you're going to change the system a little bit under the new head coach, Gavin Wimsatt. And you'll remember that name. He's likely going to be the starting quarterback for Jacksonville State. I've never been overly thrilled with what I've seen out of that guy in the past, going back to where we've seen him in the past. So I think Charles Kelly has his work cut out for him there, after all the success Rich Rod brought to Jacksonville State. So I see Sam Houston stepping back. I see Jacksonville State taking a massive step back. Now, the odds makers are aware of this because the win totals have been adjusted, to what we're expecting from Sam Houston and Jacksonville State. But we do expect, this is one of those conferences, CMAC, where I think Liberty's a contender. I think Western Kentucky's a contender. But then after that, I think you could go down and probably find a UTEP or an FIU possibly as your next contender in this conference. It wouldn't shock me if those two programs take a big step. First of all, when it comes to UTEP, this is a guy that's recruiting very well right now for Conference USA standards. That is Scotty Walden, now in his second year. He's brought in a really good class for Conference USA standards, as I said. And I think that team is going to take a big step this year. Skylar Locklear returns at quarterback. The guy that's behind him is a at one time, very highly recruited, touted prospect in Malachi Nelson. So, they've got good quarterback depth there at UTEP coming into this year. I think the defense is solid. I think the offense takes a big step forward. O-line's in better shape. Good weapons as well. I think UTEP, there's reasons to like them. I like their over win total as a dark horse shot at plus, 1,500 to win the Conference USA. I don't mind it. And then the other one, like I said, is Florida International, where to me, when I look at the Golden Panthers coming into this football season, this is definitely a program that, they've been feisty. They've been competitive. They've obviously had to battle basically back from the gutter because it certainly has not been easy considering all they've had to deal with here with FIU football. Make no mistake about it. But, you look at a quarterback that's coming back that has experience for FIU, no question about it. Kewan Jenkins. Remember, he had some injury issues last year, but when he was out there on the football field, it was a functional, capable offense, no question about that. I think it'll be interesting to see how he progresses. The defense was, I think, better last. You could see they were at least taking some steps last year. We'll see how they navigate the schedule and non-conference play. But FIU is, again, one of those teams that could take advantage of questions with La Tech, questions with, even Liberty, the favorite. Sam Houston and Jacksonville State taking steps back this year. That's where an FIU can maybe swoop in, or a UTEP can swoop in, maybe take some of those wins in the conference. So I think they're decent, longer shots to maybe put a few bucks on here, UTEP and FIU. I'm not buying Derek Mason yet. I got to see it before I believe it. They were awful last year, Middle Tennessee. The defense was just atrocious. I'm not buying Middle Tennessee until I see some improvement. New Mexico State, I'm passing on them too. I don't see it. A boatload of improvement here from New Mexico State. And not to mention, I don't think I love the hire all that much. Tony Sanchez, the failed UNLV head coach, brought in here as the head coach here for New Mexico. Well, it's his second year here, but, didn't love what I saw in the first year. I just think there's just too much ground that they've got to make up. Kennesaw is interesting because Kennesaw is a team that down the stretch last year, they showed some scrappiness to them, no question about it. But can they continue that? It'll be interesting. Dexter Williams will be the quarterback. He shows a little something. It'll be interesting to see how he fares with that. And then, of course, when you look at it, they're not eligible to win the conference this year, but they are going to be a sneaky team. It's their first year in FBS football. The quarterback was good in the FCS ranks. He's very talented. He's back for them, and that's Missouri State. The Bears of Missouri State making their FBS debut. Obviously, they're ineligible to win the conference this year, but I think ATS-wise, it could be able to be a little under-the-radar ATS point spread profit producer. Jacob Clark is a very good, talented quarterback. Certainly was last year at the FCS level. They should be able to move the football. They're going to be a good offensive team.
Mm-hmm.
They were a good offensive team last year. Defense is where the concerns are, but I think that offense is going to be able to keep them in a lot of games, led by Jacob Clark. And I think when you look at Missouri State, they are a team I've got circled to take ATS getting a lot of points. People aren't familiar with them because they're a newbie to this conference and they're a newbie to FBS. But I did a lot of looking up, teams like Delaware and Missouri State. I'm higher on Missouri State than Delaware, to be honest with you, because when you look at Delaware joining Conference USA, I think there's more question marks with them, especially on offense and at the quarterback spot. They've got themselves an established Missouri State quarterback and potentially a good one in Jacob Clark. So I think there's more upside for Missouri State of the two new entrants here into this Conference USA. C-Mac, what do you think here for Conference USA?
Yeah, this conference, I think, is just totally up what goes on, because everything at the top with Liberty, and then the new QB that's going to be there last. I think they'll still be solid, and they have enough coming back on defense. Sam Houston, it's just total. The defense totally gone. You just got Watson, really the quarterback. So there's question marks I just have there. I really want to see that early. Some other ones, Middle Tennessee, I like a little bit better. I don't love him, but I think they're going to take a step forward. Now, their win total is 4.5, and it's minus 150. I'm not saying go out and bet that, but I think they could win 5 games just because of the conference. But when you hit on it, New Mexico State, I'll tell you right now, Sanchez is a loser. None of the kids respect him. None of them did at UNLV. He just is.
Tell us how you really feel about the guy.
He is. I've seen him up front. He's just. I'm surprised he got the job. I think we talked about it when he did. I was a little bit shocked that he got, especially another head coaching job in college. Let's go with a few. Both the ones that I want to talk about was Missouri State. The offense, I think, be very good. And on the other side, I like them both pretty evenly. I think they're teams you're going to want to take, like you talked about. I like them both. I kind of like Delaware a little bit better. I think their defense is pretty good. The offense isn't kind of what Missouri State is, but I think both these teams could surprise. Where your FIU and
not like they're entering the SEC or the Big Ten. This is a mediocre conference.
New Mexico State, yeah. Exactly. So, man, this is totally up in the air. Really, this conference and Delaware, I think it's juiced high. It's like minus 150. I don't know if they win 6 games, but over 4.5, I do think they win that. There's just a lot of juice to it, but I think they can win 5 games. They make a little noise in this conference. So a lot of up in the air. In Western Kentucky, yeah, another one. Just I think will be pretty good, but how great will they be with some that they've lost? So yeah, this conference was like, what the hell do we get? And from the mainstays, the Liberties, that these teams have played better. And I think they could slide a little bit, and it's kind of open. This could be a wild card, and betting, like we talked about. And you hit it on it. I'm saying Missouri State, Delaware, I think are live here, taking them, throughout the year.
This is like we talked about this with the Big 12 a little bit, being a conference like this. Same thing here. Take some longer shots to win the conference. Don't be scared to take a 10-1 or a 15-1 to win the conference here. I think it's I don't think Liberty's a lock to win this conference. I don't. No. We saw them spit the bit last year. Certainly they're deserving favorites, but they're not unbeatable. I think there's a slew of teams that have the chance to maybe upend them here in Conference USA this year. All right, independents. Of course, we've got 2 teams that are independent teams currently, Notre Dame and UConn. So we can pretty much talk about both of them. Notre Dame's going to be really good. Let's not kid ourselves. But the question is going to be week to week. Is there value? Is there value in their win total? That's going to end up being the question. Obviously, they no longer have Riley Leonard at quarterback, Notre Dame, so they will miss having him under center. But they really like C.J. Carr, who's likely to take over at the quarterback spot. We'll have to wait and see. Although, you know what? I'm actually seeing the updates on this. Kenny Minchey, who is also battling for the number 1 spot. Apparently it's a battle because apparently Carr, who they really liked in the spring, has not had the fall camp, at least so far. Now it's early. It's only a week or so into fall camp, but not had the progression that obviously Marcus Freeman and the coaching staff would have wanted to see. So maybe that battle's still up in the air between C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchey right now as far as the quarterback spot. That's I guess the one question mark. But other than that, I mean, their O-line's excellent. Jeremiah Love back at running back. Malachi Fields, Jaden Greathouse leading the receiving core. Both of those guys are really good. And the defense should be awesome, for Notre Dame this year. So I guess quarterback and growing concerns about C.J. Carr based on his performance in August, I guess that would be really the only major concern that you would have right now. But I think when it's all said and done, obviously I think they're going to be really good. I just don't know if I love the value, with Notre Dame, with what we're seeing right now. And remember, Notre Dame's got the big game with Miami to start the season against the Hurricanes, although I do think they can win that game. And I think they probably will win that game just because I don't trust Mario Cristobal over Marcus Freeman with an whole offseason to get ready. And then they play A&M right after that. So those right off the shoot are very difficult games, 2 in a row. But then Purdue at Arkansas, Boise, could even be, a bit of a shaky little proposition there with that one, of course, being a very good Mountain West team, which we'll get into in a moment. Then the schedule does lighten after that. NC State, Boston College, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. It's just a question of is there value. And then for UConn's the only of these two teams that I did anything with as far as preseason bets, win totals. And I bet over with UConn. UConn just has continued to progress under Jim Mora Jr. He's done a nice job. Joe Fagnano is back at quarterback. Cam Edwards at running back. I think the defense really has shown strides and improvement in the first couple of years under Jim Mora Jr.'s tutelage. So I think this UConn Huskies team, you can tell slowly but surely building something fairly solid here with this program. And I think when you look at the way things are going for them from a improvement standpoint year in and year out, I do think there's things to like here. Again, with Jim Mora now 4th year, last year coming off a very solid 8-4 season overall. Like I say, I think he's continuing to build, and you'll continue to see improvement. So the over there for UConn is the the one bet I made here are the 2 independent teams. CMAC is back. CMAC, what do you think here for the independents, Notre Dame or UConn?
What price did you get with UConn?
The UConn win total is, actually, I've got them listed here. Let me just make sure I look this up, get it right for everybody. 7.5 even money, plus 100.
Even money. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the juice was. I kind of lean that way too.
I think they could be 8-4. I mean, they could be 7-5, but the fact that it's only plus 100, I've said I'm willing to bet it plus 100 for over 7.5.
Yeah, because I think they win 7 or 8 games. With the schedule that they have. And there's a few toss-ups if they can win, like at home with Duke, of course, at home with Air Force, they should get the big game at Boston College. But some of these other games, they should definitely win. So I kind of agree with you there. They've kind of taken the step forward, like you mentioned, with more. Yeah, Notre Dame's going to be very good. The defense is still good. The offensive line, of course, they always just kind of pump out offensive linemen, recruit really great, this Freeman. And the defense will be very good. Even though there's turned with who's in and out a little bit, I think the defense will be excellent. I had just problem with Carr, your quarterback. It's just the question mark. How really good is he going to be? And if he keeps the job, because I don't know. It's just total question mark. So with that being said, though, like on the win total, like it's under 10.5. Like I know there's a tad bit juice. It's not much. It's I think minus 120 a lot of spots. Like I take that under with the schedule that they have. You mentioned Miami early, then Texas A&M, like you talked about. But there's always they play SC. Boston College. Notre Dame usually always loses to last year was Northern Illinois, small school, that they always lose. But at least they're at home to Boise, at home with NC State. Fielding NC State will be a lot better. We'll see about that this year. But like at Boston College could just be one of those, weird ones that might not be easy. And then in the end of the year, they should beat Syracuse and Stanford. There's a loss on here. So I just don't know how it goes over 10.5. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm with you. A 10.5.
There's got to be
I could
with
take
the quarterback.
Yeah. Especially with the growing concerns I'm reading in their August camp about Carr. Carr threw 3 interceptions in one of the practice sessions.
I saw that.
And this guy was supposed to be a shoo-in to be the starter all offseason and be the heir apparent to Riley Leonard. And now all of a sudden it feels like they've opened the door to the other guy to maybe take the job from him, Kenny Minchie. So, yeah, that does – everything else is great. Jeremiah Love, the O-line, the defense, everything else about the team is excellent. But the quarterback spot is growing concern for me. 10.5. To me, I'm not betting a team to be 11-1 or better like that. So, yeah, it's under or nothing. I'm not touching it, but I could only look under with the number where it is right now with Notre Dame's win total. All right, one of our favorites, because who doesn't love late October, early November, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, MAC college football? Who doesn't love that during the season? MACtion. And we'll have a bunch of it. Remember, MAC always gets a ton of airtime on Hitting the Books because we do all the weeknight games on Hitting the Books.
Especially now, it's like in November, right? They kind of do the second half of the year. MACtion.
So the MAC, here's the futures board when it comes to the MAC conference this year, as we'll pull it up. Toledo plus 220, Ohio plus 330, Buffalo plus 550. The defending champions there, Miami plus 600. Chuck Martin, again, is he getting disrespected a little bit? Plus 600. Northern Illinois plus 1,200. Western Michigan 14. Bowling Green 15. Eastern Michigan 20. Central Michigan 20. Ball State 55. UMass 55. And then Kent State 300 to 1 to win the MAC. But Kent State was pretty miserable last year. We all remember that. Just some quick hitter thoughts here on the MAC. When you look at this conference, Akron is the team that I've got pegged for some improvement just because Ben Finley's been around a long time now at quarterback for the Zips program. He should have his best year yet. I think there's hope for that offense to be pretty solid. No question about it. Now the 4th season for Joe Moorhead as head coach. Can that defense take a step up? I think there's a chance. So Akron's a team I've got circled here in the MAC for, again, one of those lower rung teams as far as improvement is concerned this year, the Akron Zips. When you also look at it, Kent State, I think there's just so much ground for them to make up. Bowling Green will take a step back. I'm definitely anti-Bowling Green this season. You just lose a lot, obviously, from last year. You had a pretty solid quarterback, obviously, last year for Bowling Green and Connor Bazelak. You lose, obviously, Scott Leffler, the head coach. Eddie George, the former great Tennessee Titan years and years ago. He takes over as the head coach. I actually think they made a solid hire, but it's a lot that he's got to deal with here in year one. Lots of roster personnel changes for Bowling Green to deal with. Not to mention, I hate the new quarterback, Drew Pine. I think Drew Pine stinks. I think he's terrible. Yeah. And I saw Athlon Sports, and I go to Athlon Sports for some of my college football preseason work. But there's some guy that wrote up and ranked the quarterbacks in the MAC. How the hell someone put Drew Pine ahead of a guy that on a team that I think is going to be really good and a sleeper to win this conference, Buffalo, and Taquan Roberson, who's the quarterback for Buffalo? Someone ranked Pine ahead of Roberson. That's a bunch of nonsense. Roberson, to me, has got way more upside, way more talent, arm talent, mobility, which Drew Pine doesn't really have. So that was a little surprising. And yes, I do like Buffalo. Pete Lembo now, even more comfortable. This guy's coached MAC football for years. Remember, he was the Ball State head coach for a long time. Here now at Buffalo. I think Buffalo last year, certainly we saw improvements from the Bulls. Second season, should continue to see improvement now from them as well after a solid 8-4 campaign. Remember, they went 6-2 in the MAC last year as well. Like I said, Taquan Roberson, he's been around the block, but UConn and some other stops, but I think he's finally going to settle on a home where he will thrive. Al-Jay Henderson's a solid running back. They've got some good weapons. I think the defense, too, showed some semblance of improvement last year, will continue to be. There's some good experience returning on that side of the ball. So Buffalo, if there's going to be someone to upset the apple cart here, if it's not going to be Toledo, and I never trust Toledo and Jason Candle to win this conference. A lot of times they should and they don't. Ohio, they lose Tim Albin this year. As far as that team, can they be still solid? I love the quarterback, Parker Navarro, and he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the MAC. But they do lose a little bit on defense and a new head coach. Miami loses a lot, even though I like Chuck Martin. So questions about them. Why not Buffalo? And to me, of that top 4 or 5 teams lined to win the MAC, that's the one I like taking the shot with, the Buffalo Bulls plus 600 in that range maybe. And plus you factor in the division. the East Division can be pretty weak for this MAC conference, and you get through that. And the West Division, I think, is a little bit of the tougher division in the MAC conference, and I think it's an easier path to get to the MAC championship game for a team like Buffalo compared to some of the other teams. So that's what I would look at there. I'm kind of neutral on a lot of the mid-rung teams. Northern Illinois with Hammock, I'm not loving what I'm reading out of Northern Illinois. I think Western Michigan still has some work to do. Central Michigan could be improved, but I'm going to put my faith in Creighton here at Eastern Michigan. If I was to go with one in that mid-range,
he's got a lot of work to do. I know.
Yeah, he does have a lot of work to do, but he seems to, overachieve, a lot of times. He's got a guy that was initially recruited to Michigan State and then was at Coastal for a bit. And again, his numbers there weren't great, but it's a guy that was initially recruited to a Power 4 program in Michigan State, Noah Kim, who's likely going to be the quarterback here for EMU. So I'm just going to give Creighton the benefit of the doubt that of all those, middle range teams in the MAC and all those directional Michigan schools, Central and Western and all those, I think Eastern could be the one that has the biggest upside. CMAC, what do you think here for the MAC?
The MAC, as I always like. Yeah, I think Toledo will be all right, but I think their win total is 8.5. I wouldn't go over that. I just, I don't think, it's possible.
And I like Tucker Gleason, who's back at quarterback, but I don't love Tucker Gleason.
They had a problem running the ball last year. I know in the portal they got some running backs, which is a little weird. Usually they've been pretty good. But, in Gleason, he had to throw it a little bit more. I think he almost threw for 3,000 yards, right around there, 2,800. So, and their defense is always all right. And I thought, for always their favorite, like they didn't – some blowouts, but they didn't cover a ton. I look to back other teams with them with big pride. I think Buffalo, like you mentioned, is a little bit – could step up. I need to see a little bit more from them. So they do have 10 starters back on defense. So that I think Buffalo is. Miami, Ohio has a little bit of some issues, but I just think they're tough. They always have kind of a tough defense.
Yeah, DeQuan Finn is their quarterback. He's back in the MAC again. DeQuan Finn.
Back? I know. Back in the MAC.
Toledo to Baylor, and now at Miami O, back in the MAC where he started.
So I'll hit on next with these two teams. I always look to. Finn's back, like you mentioned. They got some receivers, some transfers from, Florida State, a few others, Colorado. You look it up. But yeah, I think Miami, Ohio could be pretty good. And the other one that I like that would take over Toledo a little bit is Ohio. I know Smith, he's just basically getting the promotion from OC to head coach. But Navarro's back. He can be a headache at times, but I think after last year, he's kind of was, he's more of a run first, obviously, if he could work on his pass game, which will be huge. But they need some wideouts to help him out. But I think this team, will be pretty good. And I like Ohio. The last 3 or 4 years, they've been good, and I think they're going to be pretty good again. They'll be able to pound the football there, and we'll see. I wanted to dig in their defense a little bit more through the start of the year, but I like Ohio coming back. Northern Illinois, they have lost a bunch of defensive starters, so we'll see from them. We hit on that, the big upset. Notre Dame, they kind of struggled at the end of the year down the stretch. And then they got a new defensive coordinator too, so that'll be up in there. Bowling Green. Yeah, I think they kind of take a step back. Their win total 6.5. I think they win 6 games maybe here. You mentioned Pine. Drew Pine on the Pine, as we used to joke about him.
No part of that guy, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Yeah, Bowling Green's defense was pretty good last year. We'll see kind of what they can do this year with the moving parts they got to deal with. Yeah, I think Central Michigan could be okay. But I don't love it. And Eastern just has to deal with, you mentioned Creighton. I love them too. As a dog at home, 5-7. They could have won a few more games too last year. Some shit tough losses, tight games. So it was kind of the first time they hadn't go 6-6 and gone bowling. But they have a little things to take care of up front and on the defensive side of the ball too, and on offense. But I'll wait and see with them. But I think they'll be a good dog as they're kind of lingering here at the bottom, of the MAC. They kind of have them there, and then Akron, UMass, Kent State. Kent State, they've only won one game the last 2 years. I mean, their win total is 1.5. I think they play Merrimack their first game. There's one. Can they win one more game? Is this possible? They have UMass, Akron. I don't know. Maybe they could win 2 games this year. Their win total is 1.5. We'll see if they could do it. I was kind of looking at that. Can this team get that first win and maybe get one more with the 1.5? I don't know. I think so. So I would take their over 1.5. But yeah, that was about it.
I mean, 1.5. We're asking for 2 wins out of Kent State. Come on.
That's it. Yeah. It's a little high, the juice, but I don't know. I think they could win 2 games there. So
I just don't want the MAC. I agree. I'd lean over, but I don't want to lay minus on them to win 2 games. At minus 184. I just not at that price. Not at that price.
Yeah, not at that price. So one thing with the MAC, we'll get into so much more as after the kind of the non-conference who they play, and then when we get them in the weekday by November, we know these teams inside and out, everything that goes on. So that'll kind of shake up a little bit too as we have the weekday games and really be betting them middle of the week and take advantage, I think.
One thing about Ohio, and even though there's things that point to Ohio taking a step back, the one thing about their coaching change is it's an in-house change. The guy's been coaching there for years at Ohio. He's part of
yeah. That's why I like it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too crazy. I think they're disrespecting him a little bit. Yeah. I think it's a little bit disrespect, a tad bit, because I think the defense still has enough. Navarro's still there. I think they'll be able to run the ball. He's got to not turn it over.
I just laughed at Toledo's favored to win the conference, and we've seen them spit the bit so many times.
I know.
Championship and fall short. Yeah, with Canada.
I don't think so, because I just think the value there is with Ohio, Miami. I have those type teams. Even Buffalo, maybe longer shot like you talked about. Even though there's a lot of kind of hype with them, if you're reading up on all these sites. So, Ohio, good old Ohio. I think they'll be right there in the end here.
If you want to bet Toledo, here's how you bet Toledo, in my opinion, because I bet Toledo in this spot last year. They went on the road to an SEC team, and they beat the brakes off Mississippi State. I still remember that last year. Now, Mississippi State was not very good, but still Toledo went in there with Tucker Gleason at quarterback, and they won outright. It's double-digit dogs at Mississippi State. Take them plus the points at Kentucky. I think they're going to hang in that game. I think that's what Toledo does. They go on the road in non-conference play and they cover and they're competitive, and then they get to the MAC play late in the year and they're
going to be laying 24.5. Yeah, against Buffalo or whoever. Exactly.
And remember to fade Toledo as favorites, long-term as favorites, especially double-digit favorites. Toledo has been awful in that point spread role. We've talked about it on this show for years, so make sure you keep that in mind. All right, Mountain West and Pac-2. I'm going to start with Connor on this. C-Mac can start us off here because this is his territory. This is his part of the country here. Mountain West, Pac-2.
Yeah.
What do you like here in this? We'll start with the Mountain West first, C-Mac. Mountain West, what are you liking?
Mountain West, let's get to it. Boise here, I think this team's going to be pretty good. I think the schedule, like we talked about earlier, let me pull it up, the Notre Dame game, but I like their schedule a little bit, how it laid out. I don't think they go a ton, travel is big with them, the first 6 games or so. Let me pull it up here. So at South Florida, at home, Eastern Washington, Air Force won't be easy, but at home to App State. Before that game, I think they're 4-0 for the most part the Notre Dame game. But New Mexico, they're at home at least with UNLV. I'm going to get to them in just a second. They have Fresno at home. Easily gettable game. Even though it's San Diego State, it's on the road. That should be a winnable game. San Diego State, we'll see if they can do anything. At home against Colorado State. Yeah, I think this team is very good. Again, no Genty, but I think they have enough, just from the recruiting that they do, the transfers, everything. In the end, they'll be good enough. And we'll see with the defense. Like in this conference, it's good enough. It's going to be tough if they get to the playoff, and do all that, even though they had some success. And man, that game was tough to watch against Penn State. God damn, should cover that game. I don't even want to get into it. Talk about a backbreaker there. But I think Boise, they're the cream of the crop here, really, and they get it. UNLV, this was my main bet for them. The win total is 8.5 right here. It's under for this team. They've just lost too much. There's too many problems. Mullen, I think we'll see how much he does. Very boisterous guy, loud. The transfer will be good. He can recruit, but I just think we'll see what he can do defensively. They just was such a good movement here, and I all thought started with UNLV and the defensive side of the ball the last few years while they had success, especially in those small games that they used to lose. You know what I mean? When they play Colorado State, or when they play Nevada, they'd always lose. They were just a lot better. And there's just, the quarterback here. They lost White at receiver. There's just too many question marks for this UNLV team that I think it's under 8.5. Here, I wanted to pull that up real quick. Their schedule too. It's pretty easy to start out, but I think some of these games, like UCLA, is a toss-up. At Wyoming, very tough. I don't know if they get, Air Force at home, they probably win. There's the Boise game mentioned. It's probably a loss. New Mexico, they win at home. At Colorado State, I don't know if it's going to be easy. See, these were the games they won and maybe they didn't crush these teams, but they went there and took care of business. And sometimes they'd be laying points on the road, UNLV. But they were able to get the wins. So, they do have Hawaii at home. I don't know. I'm a little just down on them. Maybe they win 8 games this year, which I think is reasonable. What do you think? I mean, maybe they win 9 with the schedule, but I just see a little bit of a slip up with them, like around 8 wins. What do you think on the Rebels?
I agree. I mean, the UNLV, I think it's going to take a little step back. The problem is the schedule's solid actually for them. It's favorable.
It's solid. It's favorable looking at it. Yeah.
Dan Mullen, I don't know what to make of him. Great at Mississippi State, unmitigated flop and disaster at Florida. What Dan Mullen are we getting? And he's been in television now for years, working at ESPN. Has he learned something? Is he better for it? Is he going to be able to? Because Barry Odom, he was turning a corner with recruiting at UNLV, and obviously the facilities, and that's had something to do with it as well. The improvement there, but Dan Mullen's got to show he can bring in the talent like Barry Odom was starting to show here in this.
Yeah, and the QB, do you trust Calandria?
I don't.
Do you really? Yes, I think he could be decent in the Mountain West. But no, you've seen this guy. I've seen enough of this.
Too many mistakes still at times.
Too many mistakes, and really an orgy back there. They still have
26 touchdowns and 22 interceptions at Virginia for Calandria is not a great ratio. That's not good at all.
No, but I think at the Mountain West, it's it'll kind of work, but it's not. Here's
the scary part. If you don't think Calandria is that great, you better pray though that he stays healthy, because the backup option is Alex Orji. That guy can't throw a fucking forward pass. We saw.
I'd rather play Cameron Frill. He's still there. I'm pretty sure he's better. I've seen him enough.
Yeah, he
get
is.
into
He's
games.
QB. Yep.
He's better than Orji, and flat out. He can run, but I'd play him. I've seen him go in at least in games of the last 2 or 3 years when he's had to play. So I know when I was looking at the depth chart, I'm like, don't put in Orji, go to Friel here. But Calandria was another one. Man, can this guy? But maybe at home against New Mexico and some of these teams, he'll be good enough, in this Mountain West to win games. But I don't have a lot of trust in him. I could see some bad games or him getting pulled. Don't you? That's just kind of what I could see here.
That's
with the
true.
Rebels.
And the biggest issue that Mullen and the UNLV is going to have to overcome this year is that there's not a single quarterback on their roster this year that's as good as Matthew Sluka or Hajj Williams from last year. Yeah,
for sure. And then before that, the SC, what's his name? Jesus, just drawing me. The SC quarterback now. That took off.
Yeah.
God, I'm just drawing a blank. I was saying, but anyways, in the last couple of years with Odom, he's had these few quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The Sluka, then he leaves, then Williams comes in. It's very good. Like it's not the same QBs here with good old Calandria from Virginia.
Right.
Seen enough of him. No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Doubt. So that's the concerns there. All right. As far as my thoughts, look, I think this is, and I'm one to usually take longer shots with my conference futures, or at least make a case for longer shots. I'm not doing that with the Mountain West. I think it's slam dunk Boise's winning this conference.
Boise, I mean, that's what I was saying. I think so too.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, this is my biggest conference futures win bet is that Boise to win the Mountain West. I just don't see how they don't. Minus 130 is what I got. It's gone up since then, minus 150. So it's getting a little pricey, but I don't know. There's a couple teams in this conference that I do think, will have some semblance of improvement. When you look at the rest of the Mountain West after Boise, UNLV, you know what? I don't know if UNLV should be the second favorite. I'll tell you who I think should be the second favorite. San Jose State. I like San Jose State.
Shit.
And Niumatalolo, that was yeoman's work last year for him to get what he got from that San Jose State team. Because everyone thought they were going to be shit last year, but you got to give Coach Ken a lot of credit. He got a lot more than anybody would have reasonably expected out of San Jose State, and now he's got Walker.
More offense.
Yeah, his quarterback back in the fold again this year. They had a winning record, 6-6. They ended up winning their bowl game as well. 7-6 overall. Now year 2 should be more comfortable. I thought the defense, at the times they played okay last year. I think with what they're returning on the skill positions and at quarterback, I think San Jose State's the one team. If you're going to take one team to maybe pull a monster upset and win the conference over Boise, it would be San Jose State for me in that 10-1 range. Fresno's got too many questions. We'll have to see. EJ Warner. I thought EJ Warner was going to be great, and I just don't see progression out of him at the quarterback spot. I didn't really see him get better and better. And, of course, new head coach there now at Fresno as well. Air Force is a team I think that's improved. But I don't know if Air Forces win the conference type of improvement.
No, exactly.
Be better. I do like Air Force over 6.5 wins. Nick Alvento makes the great point in our chat. Once they switch back to what they do best, triple option last year, they really started to play well down the stretch. They were awesome down the stretch last year, Air Force. So I do like Air Force over the win total. I think from an ATS standpoint, there'll be a lot of good spots to bet on Air Force this year. I think Colorado State, they did have a solid winning year last year, but a lot of that was smoke and mirrors. A lot of games where they got yarded, outgained, and they still won. And I'm still not a Braden Fowler Nicolosi fan. Just too much erratic play from him at the quarterback spot for the Rams.
Jeez. Yeah. Up and down. You know who I like just because the core a little bit, which is tough. The offense just isn't that good. The quarterback play traditionally is Wyoming. I think they're going to be a little bit better, of course, than last year. Kind of a rough.
They found out what it's like taking over for Craig Bowl, and it was rough. It was a tough.
It was rough. But defensive mind, I think, they got a bunch of guys coming back. They got to lean on that. And I think they'll be a little bit better. They got a bunch of starters back on both sides of the ball, and it's never easy to play in Laramie, on a Saturday, freezing cold, in November. So I think they're a little bit of a sleeper. It can be better than how bad they were last year in this conference.
I agree. I think it's rough for a lot of the teams at the bottom. San Diego State, Nevada. I'm not overly excited about. New Mexico is just so much they've got to make better. I mean, it's just tough spot there for New Mexico this year, especially.
Dampier.
I remember Dampier, how important he was to that team. He was the team that held that team together. They couldn't stop a nosebleed on defense, New Mexico, but they could score points. And now you lose him, so there's question marks there. Like I said, Nevada, I don't see this team really. Chuba Purdy, I'm not sold on him as my number one quarterback. The younger brother of Brock Purdy. I'm not sold necessarily on him. He's been around the block. San Diego State. Now, look, Danny O'Neill was pretty bad at quarterback for the Aztecs last year. So you probably have only one way to go, and that's up. But Jaden Denegal and Bert Emanuel are going to battle for that spot. Sean Lewis was a tough year for him last year. I got to see it before I believe it for San Diego State. I'll throw one team out there in that bottom end range. Utah State, just because they brought in, Bronco Mendenhall's been around the block, right?
Oh, he's done a lot of,
He's done a lot of winning. He's done a lot of good work getting programs better initially. Maybe leave the door open for Utah. Now, Utah State's another one of these teams. Can on defense, they show you anything, because obviously they're another team that couldn't really get many stops on that side of the football. But I think defensively, like, they got nowhere to go but up. When you look at what they've got offensively, last year he got all kinds of experience starting once Cam Rising got injured a couple years ago. But now you got Bryson Barnes. He played last year at Utah State. I thought he got better as the season went on. Now his second year should be a little bit better. So I think Utah State, just because Bronco's there, to be honest with you, I'm sure Virginia's thinking, boy, at least Bronco Mendenhall, we had a couple winning seasons there when he was at Virginia. But like I said, I was a veteran hire. You could have done worse. So maybe Utah State improved. And Hawaii with Timmy Chang is the one that I've got circled for improvement too. Hawaii is, they've slowly started to build things up. Now they do lose Braden Shager. It was a pretty good quarterback for them, but they
I want to see that new QB,
Micah Alejandro. Yeah, Alejandro for Hawaii, who they really like. They really think this guy could be one of the better quarterbacks since the Timmy Chang days when he was with the quarterback there, and Colt Brennan, the late Colt Brennan. Like, that's kind of the ceiling that Micah Alejandro has for Hawaii. That's how excited they are about how he possibly could play for this team, no doubt. And let's not forget that down the stretch last year, we saw the way he played. He got into games against Utah State and New Mexico, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, almost 600 passing yards, 48 for 69, a very good percentage. He looked really good, Micah Alejandro, late last year for Hawaii. So I think the door is open for Hawaii to be maybe an upper half of the Mountain West finish. Are they ready to, win the conference and maybe upset a Boise? Not yet, but I think they're definitely going to be an improved team. I think their offense and the quarterback could be very good. Defense, at times last year, stepped forward and played solid. I think Timmy Chang, for the first time in years, there's light at the end of the tunnel for Hawaii football.
Yeah, I agree. And it's Stanford here, first game, right? What date is that?
A big one. And there's a reason that game's around to pick 'em, by the way, because Stanford is a fucking shit show right now with what's going on there.
It's at Stanford, correct?
It is that first game for
Hawaii.
I believe it's on the island, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Hawaii home game. Yep. Honolulu.
And what's the line moved to? Yeah, it's moved to Hawaii, right? Yeah.
That's right.
It was around to pick 'em.
How about the fact
that
it's a CBS game, Saturday, August 23rd, that week 0 game. CBS television. The main CBS has got that game on. Big time.
I think I've already been looking at it. I know it hasn't hit 3, but it was kind of a pick 'em one. It's moved already to 2.5. Like, I don't know over the field goal. I'm calling it. We still got time, but I think that's the move here. Stanford, I think it could be a pretty good game, but I think Hawaii under the 3, is the move there.
Yeah, I think they have a real chance to win that game, because Stanford, there's a lot of concerning signs with them coming into this year. But to me, the best bet in this conference was Boise to win it. Quickly on the Pac-2, I think Oregon State's the team I like more. I think Washington State, there's some concerns that, coaching change. You look at what they've got at quarterback. John Mateer left for Oklahoma. So I do have some concerns about what we're going to get, maybe a step back from the Washington State Cougars this year. So I'd be a little bit concerned about them entering this season. Meanwhile, Oregon State, bring in the Duke transfer quarterback, Malik Murphy, who's likely going to be the starter. I think that team's going to take a step forward. Remember, last year was the first year after Jonathan Smith left for Michigan State. They had a big kind of rebuild, if you will. And I think Oregon State will be a little bit better. I think the schedule for them manageable enough where I could see them going over their win total. So I think a bet on team, Oregon State, leaning over their win total as well. And then for Washington State, I'd probably go the other way. I think they might be a little overvalued, maybe lean under their win total this year. So what do you think of those teams, Pac-2?
I want to see Washington State a little bit more, with what they got, at least to start out, with kind of all the moves that they had, of course, at QB, and the defense, which I thought was pretty good, a little bit at times. We always know that both these teams, it's, at home, they always play good football. They're just kind of different teams, home games for them. But I thought there's a lot of I thought the schedule was pretty good for Oregon State. There's a few like 50-50 games, but like at Tulsa, they should get.
Oh,
right?
They could win that. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, App State isn't always easy, that travel, but who knows? They have Wake Forest at home.
State, I think the arrow's pointing down on App State. We'll get to that.
We'll see.
I think they're a program decline, honestly.
There's just, kind of the losses, Oregon, I can't say that's the games always, but at Texas Tech, probably they have Wake Forest, but at home. I mean, just when I was going through some of these games, it could be tight. I think, that they could win. And they're just one I want to see a little bit more of. But I kind of like, how they look a little bit. Especially you talked about with Malik Murphy. I think, it's going to be solid. And I want to see their defense a little bit more. I wanted to run through a little bit more of their defense in and out there.
All right, the last conference here, Sun Belt, and Sun Belt, Fun Belt for a reason. I think this has become, in my opinion, top to bottom, the best Group of 5 conference there is right now. I'd even slightly rate it ahead of the AAC right now, and the Mountain West for that matter. I really like this Sun Belt. You've seen the way they've been able to go to Power 4 teams and give them a tough game. It's happened many times in the past. So I like this conference a lot. I'm going to start with the obvious statement. James Madison's going to be really good, and I like them to win this conference. I think they're really, really strong, both sides of the football. Their secondary should be outstanding. The D-line does have to replace a lot of starters, but they've recruited so well. Bob Chesney, there's been no suffering whatsoever in 2 years with Bob Chesney from a recruiting standpoint after Curt Cignetti left for Indiana. He's still been able to recruit at a very high level. They obviously have Matthew Sluka brought in as quarterback, who, of course, started the year at UNLV last year, and he fits the system well. They want the quarterback to be involved in the run game. They've got that. That's the kind of system they run on offense at JMU, and now they've got that kind of quarterback and Sluka, George Pettaway at running back, good receivers to work with, excellent offensive line. Should be one of the best offensive lines in the Sun Belt. I think they're going to have a really good season. I think talent-wise, no team has more talent on both sides of the football in the Sun Belt than James Madison. So James Madison plus 270 to win the Sun Belt. I think they do that. Texas State, for a couple of years now, we expect a lot out of them, and they've fallen short. And that's disappointing. But you're with G.J. Kinney, this was a team that was expected to be great last year. They blew games they should have won. The offense was not as consistent as we expected last year. The defense was, okay at times. It was awful at other times. So Texas State and now they got to break in, new quarterback this year for the Texas State Bobcats.
Yarnell.
It's apparently Brad Jackson. Yarnell's down on the 4th on the depth chart right now, which tells you all you need to know. They're keeping him, and rightfully so. I saw enough of him at Pitt that I was really trusting him to be the next heir apparent quarterback here for Texas State. But I got questions
McCoy there.
State. Yeah, it looks like Brad Jackson at the moment looks to be the projected starting quarterback here for Texas State. But I got questions about them. Louisiana should be good. Michael Desormeau's done a nice job coaching this group. Obviously, they've been one of the better teams in this conference every year. I think they lost to Marshall last year in the Sun Belt championship game, but they were right there. I think the quarterback spot, Walker Howard, I think is going to be really solid at that quarterback spot for Louisiana. He transfers in from Ole Miss. So I think he's probably going to end up being solid here. The defense should be good. So if not James, and I think it will be James Madison winning the Sun Belt. But if not them, I would say give Louisiana a look maybe at 7-1. Of course, South Alabama loses Gio Lopez, who's now with Chapel Bill at North Carolina. So there's a quarterback change going on there with the Jaguars of South Alabama this year. But Bishop Davenport did start a lot of games, so he does have experience for South Alabama. They should still, in my opinion, be pretty good. So I could see them being in contention. Georgia Southern's interesting. Their defense,
I know.
Helton I worry about too. Clay Helton still. I've got some. I know that he's actually done okay here. They've improved, but the defense I'm worried about. And J.C. French, the quarterback, is still, if you get pressure on him, that guy, God, he can make some mistakes. He can look awesome sometimes throwing the ball, J.C. French, and he can look absolutely clueless at times, like he's never played the position before. That's what you get out of him. Can they keep him upright? That O-line do a good job. I think that's going to play a big role in it this year for Georgia Southern. But I'm a little more pessimistic on them than optimistic. You want a team that I'm going to latch on to here, CMAC, in the Sun Belt, in the mid-range, as maybe a dark horse, a sleeper that maybe out of I think it's going to be tough to beat James Madison. I'll just say that. But if someone is going to upset them, I'll throw a team out there in the mid-range in the Sun Belt futures that could do that, and it's because of the quarterback. And I'm talking about Old Dominion. I am a big fan of Colton Joseph. This guy took over the starting job last year, like midway through, and he didn't look back. He can run. He can throw. The offense was just terrific down the stretch of the season last year for the Old Dominion Monarchs. He's now the full-time starter. High expectations for what this offense could be for ODU this season. I'm excited to see what they get from him. They've got some good receivers led by TJ Lott. They're a balanced offense. The O-line should be in good shape. The defense, believe it or not, made big strides last year. I think Old Dominion here in this Sun Belt Conference in that 10-1, 12-1 range. And certainly I like their over win total as well, ODU in this conference. Colton Joseph, man's the reason. I thought once he took over the reins at quarterback for them last year, that was a different football team. And only asking them to get to 6-6, bowl eligibility, and over 5.5 wins, I think they could be like not just 6-6 and make a bowl game. I think they could be, like I said, sleeper team in this conference, maybe to be that team to maybe be in position to challenge James Madison here in the Sun Belt. CMAC, your thoughts here on the Sun Belt?
The only lone thing with Old Dominion, the schedule is a little bit tough. I like this team too, but what do they have? They're at Indiana, NC Central.
Non-conference is tricky. I will definitely.
They always play Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech, but who knows there? They're at home versus Liberty, but I think they win 6 games too here. I really do. I think they're a team that they're putting a little bit low. That to be, definitely, like, to me, they're more upside than like Marshall, Monroe. I didn't really like them. Georgia State. To me, it was Georgia Southern. Yeah, it's like, what do we get? The defense just can they stop anything at all? Because the offense, I think, is going to be pretty good. And French he is what he is. He's a Sun Belt quarterback that's up and but they should be able to run the ball well. It's just that defense. Like in the end, I think they're a decent team, a 500 team, maybe a little bit better. Georgia Southern there. Yeah, Texas State, they lost a bunch on both sides of the ball, both line, on offensive line, defensive line, running back. And then you went through all those quarterbacks. Who's going to play there? So it's up. And I always like Louisiana. It's kind of this mid-range, even better than Coastal, Southern Miss. Like I would take Louisiana over them. They've lost some keys here, but the transfer's been pretty good when I was going through everything. It's pretty good recruiting that they brought in, and some transfers. So I don't know if they're great, but I think they'll be pretty good. I think South Alabama would be pretty good, like you talked about. Quarterback gone. They lost Bothwell to Mississippi State. but I think the defense will be all right. They're another team. I mean, what they go 7-6 last year? It's probably similar. What did you think? What do you think about Arkansas State here with Butch Jones?
A lot of people that I've talked
Arkansas
to,
State.
and I get their sentiment about Arkansas State, say they won a lot of close games. A lot of the coin flip games went their way. They're going to regress coming their way. The defense is still shaky, but I do like Jalen Rayner. I really do like him as a quarterback.
That's the only thing too. I kind of like him.
But the counter to that is I'm not a big Butch Jones guy as the coach.
Yeah. I like Rayner. That's kind of what I was looking at.
Good over team with their totals.
Him in the offense. For sure. It's the defense, and can they win those tight games like this? That's why it's so great. This is another one that good conference, a good value betting wise once you get into the year and see these teams and kind of dig into them and home, road, split, all that good stuff, because a lot of parity. They're just not a dominant team. Even with James Madison, I think they're the best. Like, I don't think they're worlds above some of these teams. Like, I think they are the best in the conference, and I want to see Sluka, really. Like, I think he'll be solid in this conference, but a lot of hype. He was the whole thing with UNLV. He's gone, so I'd like to see him here with James Madison. So I think they are definitely, the team in this conference to win. I think they, definitely can win it. Troy, I think, could be better than last year.
Crowder, their quarterback, Troy, went down to injury, out for the season last year, but he's healthy now and he's back, so that should definitely help Troy a little bit. Remember, Troy had
some experience. Yeah.
That was just a season that just went awry for them. Once, because remember, they lost Sumrall, Gerard Parker took over, 4-8 overall, 3-5. Then, of course, the injury to Crowder, and then it really went downhill from there. So I actually leave the door open for a little undervalued Troy. Maybe coming into the year.
That's how I feel. I think the defense could be a little bit better. Secondary is decent when I was going through some of their stuff. But I think there could be some value with them after just, what a horrible year. Usually Troy football, pretty solid. It was just a tough year last year. So, Sun Belt, Fun Belt. That's about it. Anything App State, you want to touch on them? 5-6 last year.
I'm not buying, and the coaching change too. Like I didn't love the trajectory under the previous coach there by any stretch of the imagination. But now they make the coaching change finally here. Dowell Loggins here taking over as the quarterback, as the head coach here at Appalachian State. But you can tell this is a program in a bit of a decline. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of also AJ Swan, the Vanderbilt transfer and LSU transfer coming in at quarterback. This guy's bounced around a bit. The defense has taken a huge step back. It's not a defense lately. App State. Now, and I was not a big Aguilar fan, and he's gone. But I don't know if AJ Swan's a big upgrade. I just think the program's just not recruiting as well as they once did either. That's a part in it. James Madison and Louisiana and a lot of these other teams, they're just flat out beating App State in the recruiting rankings. That never used to happen. App State used to always, recruit among the best, if not the best, in Sun Belt come every year. That's not
especially in their area. Yeah,
they're losing out. They are losing out as far as recruiting battles are concerned, and that's why another reason why I think they've taken a step back. I'll give you two more that I'm liking. Bet on, undervalued. Look at them ATS in the bottom rung of the Sun Belt. One is Southern Miss. Because of the fact they bring in Charles Huff from Marshall, quarterbacks coming with him too. Braylon Braxton, who had a really good year last year as well for Marshall. So it's the coach and the quarterback together here at Southern Miss. And I look, because they've been so bad.
Experienced team too that he's getting and he's bringing in.
And they know the coach. They're going to know the systems. So I think a sneaky team, Southern Miss. Are they going to be conference champion worthy? No. But I think they're going to be a lot better than people think. And like I said, over their win total, bet on them, ATS. I think they're going to be one of those teams that will make some money for you. How
is that flip, too? Just one of the weirdest things to go into with Marshall. They won a bunch of close games. He's there, then Huff leaves, and he goes to Southern Miss, who is awful. That was one of the weirdest.
Job. It's a lateral move, right? You can't say it's just a bigger job than Marshall, Southern Miss. Yeah.
So strange. And then now, because of that, everyone's like, Marshall's really gutted. We'll see what we get from them. I need to see it too. Like, just a lot of question marks. That was just a strange move. And of course, with Huff already had at least some there from, a bad team, but brings over a bunch from Marshall to Southern Miss.
Continuity will be much better than you think for a first-year head coach at a new program, no doubt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I think Southern Miss, there's the door open for them to be better. And the other one, just because I respect the hell out of the coach, he got fucking screwed by UAB when he got canned and replaced by Dilfer, who's been a disaster at UAB. And that's the guy that's coaching Monroe, UL Monroe, Vincent. That's the guy that got screwed. They wanted Vincent to, the players wanted Vincent to be the permanent head coach at UAB, and they after he was the interim, and they had that late rally, and then all of course,
yeah, that was bad that they did.
And they went to Dilfer, and Dilfer's just sunk the program. He's been so bad with them. But Vincent, and look, he had a crazy job ahead of him here at Monroe. This was a bottom feeder program, but look at how competitive they were at times. Like they battled. There were times I took them. And they covered, and they actually, last year, sprung a couple of upsets or two. When you look at Louisiana Monroe football for Bryant Vincent here, they played their guts out. And now you got to think year by year, he's going to at least somewhat accumulate a little better roster to work with. I'm hearing good things about the likely starting quarterback here, Aiden Armenta, who's likely going to be the starter. Now, his numbers were a little spotty last year, but you have to remember, it's a pretty bad program, UL Monroe. Long way to go. I'm not saying they're going to be, a bowl team. I'm not ready to go there yet with a program like ULM, who's been a perennial bottom feeder. All I'm asking them is to be a little bit better with a coach that I think got a raw deal at UAB. The defense, too. It battled last year for UL.
Yeah, it did it in some of those games.
It did at times. Like they just hung in there. The offense was kind of hit or miss, but the defense, I thought, played a lot better than I think a lot of people would have expected out of the Warhawks of UL Monroe last year. So I look at ULM as, again, I'm not asking them to shock the world and win the Sun Belt. I'm not even asking them to be a bowl team. I'm asking UL Monroe with a guy that I think's got his head on straight as a head coach, and he got a raw deal, totally screwed out of the UAB job. All I'm asking UL Monroe is to just maybe sneak out 5 wins this year and over 4.5 at plus money.
Yeah, I think
they
possible.
Could. And I'm willing to take a shot because it's a plus price attached to it. At over
it'd be big. I see in that game with them is St. Francis, they win. Of course, at Bama, they lose. And it's open, but at UTEP,
they won 5 games last year, 5 and 7. They won.
Like at UTEP, I think huge. Like if they win that, we'll see with UTEP all the problems they've had, especially like that would be big. They at least have Arkansas State at home, at Northwestern, maybe get Coastal with their up and down. I mean,
remember, they
home
beat
Detroit
Madison last year in an absolute shocker.
Yes,
the Monroe team last year, 21-19.
Yeah,
beat Troy
South
on the
Alabama though.
I was
at
on
home
that game too. I remember.
Yeah, I was on them. Yeah.
Ugly. They won 13-9.
Yeah. Ugly, but they did. But like South Alabama at home, like I think South Alabama is just all right. But like that's a game that maybe here at home they'll be a dog. Later on in the year we'll see with their record. But at Texas State down, is that a game that they could be in and win? For sure, at Louisiana might not be easy, but maybe they can hit 5 again. Right around there. But I think ATS they could definitely hang around a little bit.
ATS, that's the main thing. Even more than the win total over 4.5 with UL Monroe. I think ATS they will be a winning ATS team this year. UL Monroe. The defense battles. We saw them spring. That was year 1 with a dead bottom feeder. Soul-sucking program for years, and yet they still, in year 1 with Bryant Vincent, they were able to beat Troy on the road and shock James Madison. So you got to think that this year, if the trajectory continues, it could be more progress.
Yeah. What's going to be big is see, like, these same teams, like Monroe could seek up because just because their name and who they're, like Coastal, App, State, like, so that they're still going to be kind of, being a price with them and thinking Monroe's awful. And those are kind of the games where they could take advantage of,
Absolutely. That's exactly the way I see it too. So fascinating there. I think that's about it for me with the Sun Belt. Not really much more to add than that. It's a fascinating conference. Like I say, definitely, I think there's enough to think James Madison, can win. I like that future a lot. But like I said, there's some, keep an eye on Troy and Old Dominion and Louisiana. And like I said, Southern Miss and UL Monroe. Marshall's going to have a hard time this year. Marshall, it'll be rough. I mean, they lose, Huff. They lose Braxton. It's going to be a bit of a down year for Marshall. I agree with the negativity surrounding Marshall this year. Coastal, I think, I'm kind of neutral when it comes to Coastal Carolina. Not really buying or selling them coming into this season. One thing I can say is Tim Beck. There's coaches I like more than Tim Beck. I can tell you that. But nevertheless, Coastal is kind of neutral on them. And then the one team I don't think we've said much about yet, Georgia State. I mean, I cheer for him because he's Canadian, but Christian Veillere, the quarterback, man, he's got to cut down on the interceptions. Too many last year for Georgia State, and I still think they've got problems on defense, a lot of personnel turnover once again for them. So when I look at Georgia State, I think it's going to be tough to see under Del McGee, second season as head coach, that make huge strides from a team that obviously last year was just 3-9 overall, 1-7 in the Sun Belt. So Georgia State, I'm looking at their win total right now, 3.5. I know that they won 3 last year. I'm not certain they're a shoe-in to go to 4 this year. So it's low number, but I could only look under with the Georgia State win total. All right, there you have it. Group of 5 conference previews. Hope you enjoyed it. Shout out to people in the chat tuning in live. Ross Pitts, Nick Alvento, Old E, Oven Fresh. We appreciate it. Ken Hatt, appreciate you guys joining us. Yeah, Ross, we mentioned it earlier. He's asking about Memphis. I'm negative on Memphis. C-Mac, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Memphis, not a fan?
Yeah, you know how I'm not a fan. Last year was kind of it, for them. But they're a little bit of a wait, and see. I just think they're going to still get a lot of love. And we always talk about one thing is because of their schedule. They play a big team, you could take them, but they always lay these crazy points, and I always want to fade them because their record's horrible. ATS. They were better last year. Like, they got a bad Florida State. They won that game. Florida State team, right? It was just a really good year, the 10-2 for kind of who they were. But a little bit of weight for me on Memphis. I'm not really high on them.
All right, there you have it. So again, we want to remind people that we will have our first weekly college football hitting the books show Monday, August 18th. That's a week and a half away to tee up week 0 games coming up that weekend. So it'll be Monday, August 18, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, every Monday, same time, Mondays, just like it's been for years. We will no longer have the MLB show on Mondays starting that week. So keep that in mind as well. We will do baseball Tuesdays and Fridays starting that week, 2 days a week. So that's going to be the schedule moving forward. Monday, college football hitting the books, and then Tuesday, Friday, MLB hitting the books starting on August 18th that week. There you have it. And we're back Friday this week for another MLB Hitting the Books show. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will be back Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific with another edition of the MLB Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.
Peace.